Okay, buddy. Um, well,
Right.
shall I show you what I got so far?
Yeah, go for it.
Alrighty. Um, hmm. And all of a sudden, it ain't bloody much. Um, right, so issues, we can't sort of, it's hard to get the switch. It's really, really frustrating
What are you meant to be displaying? I don't see anything.
it's really frustrating to try and test a bot
Yes.
when I'm going through the switchboard for two
Mm-hmm.
reasons. Number one is the switchboard can sort of drop me off an agent. So I tried to add a little prompt in there to the switchboard that said that if I say that I want to talk to this agent specifically, hold,
Mm-hmm.
hold me on that agent until I say otherwise. It was getting too,
Oh, so that we experienced that a few days ago when Backchat kept on,
yeah, yeah,
interrupting.
yeah, yeah. So there's a bit of prompting to do there. Um, And the other frustrating thing is that every time there's a new agent comes on the scene, I have to update the switchboard prompt because for latency's sake, we can't afford to do a search, which gets the current thing. We
Mm-hmm.
need to actually do a
That's right. No, that's reasonable, isn't it? So a new
yeah,
agent comes on, and they just update the list of things to
yeah.
appear unavailable with a
I
description.
think long term, what we'd want is the indexing feels like it needs to be a fundamental feature of the platform. Long term, we'd make it so that each time Switchboard ran, it would pull in the latest index of all the agents that it was allowed to access.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that, I
Yeah,
guess.
and it just indexes in the background probably when
Mm,
nobody's doing anything. Yeah.
mm. But
Okay.
this has been quite illuminating to understand that how much we need this testing because now that just to get a simple prompt in requires the cooperation of the summoner, the switchboard, and then only if you land it on target, then testing the agent that you're trying to work
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
It's
Tell me about
sort
when you
of,
saw that video. It's painful.
yeah.
Uh,
So what I was in the process of trying to update the UI to handle the testing framework that I've made, but um, Switchboard thwarted me.
mm,
So, so
okay.
what I got instead is I got um, hang on, I'm just trying to make some space here. Make some space. I don't know. Where's my thing gone? There. Okay, so I'm gonna run. Oh dear. Oh dear. How cumbersome a new system is to use. I made. So this is this is what one of the test files looks like.
Mm-hmm.
The very first test file. It's called Hammer Synth,
Mm-hmm.
and it looks like. Yeah, well, that's ugly. Let me make that look pretty. Um, hit it in place. There we go. Preview. Da da. Okay. Um, that's it, really. Oh, I can see. Hold on a second. 1 second.
Yeah.
1 second.
All right.
1 second. Ah, dear. Um, so that's pretty much what it looks like. Just as the test file, it's just got one simple prompt. It's got a list of expectations.
Mm-hmm.
The front matter is the only front matter that I'm paying attention to at the moment is the target, which is the agent under test. So in this case, it's testing the hammer agent, and I had to make an extra bot, which I'm sure you'll have something to say about the assessor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it turned out, well, my opinion of the structure of the system is that you have there's a presentation layer of the tests, which is I called that agent the synth
Mm-hmm.
because it really just simply acts as an orchestrator of the components within the synth testing framework that we're making.
Mm-hmm.
Its job is to read the synth test files, answer questions, invoke runners, and then report results. But it doesn't do any of the actual testing itself, and it doesn't do the assessing itself. It hands those off so that it keeps its thread narrow.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Okay, so there's only those
Where's
two.
where's the front matter? The other one is the state. So if you've got tests saying list all customers, you need a state of some kind of database which has 10 customers in it. You're expecting 10 customers back, because
Yeah,
otherwise,
so I haven't got to how to do provisioning of basically the before setting of it. I assume that would just be a list of commands that would run, and then some sort of a that would just be the same format as this, because I think you would just make some prompts that you would execute in sequence, and then you would have some expectations. And so in the before loop, in the before block, you just go like before, and then
yeah, probably.
you just chat it
So
up.
say if what we want is a test bed of a database with 10 customers,
Mm.
and we're expectation of 10 customers listed, then the instantiation of that is the hammer, which is, I think you said, the target.
Yep.
You just instantiate a hammer with what is exactly the same format as the real running system, which might have 100 customers. Who knows?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And
yeah, and
so
we can replace that anytime. Now,
yeah.
the
So
only
it could
problem.
be done with a commit. So you could have like a commit snapshot that you liked, and you'd use that as the start of your test.
Mhm.
But I think it's easier or better even if you use the prompts to set up the test anyway, because you should be able to do that with your system.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's like reading this, reading that. You
Mm.
know, you are this hammer. Um, that 10 is going to get stale pretty quickly. Um,
Why don't I show you what I got to before you get into the what I'm actually putting in the test? My job is
uh-huh.
not to do these tests. My job is to
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's fine. That's fine.
right
I'm just noting it
how I'm
accordingly.
doing this is um like I did have to write some code, it turns out, but it was all just sort of stitching things together to make it
Mm-hmm.
nicer for the model to understand. So it wasn't really it
Yeah, yeah,
was
yeah. No,
right.
that's fine.
And so my what I'm working on is I'm just trying to figure out a format for the test files and execute them and understand how artifact behaves when you do that. I'm trying to hand this off to you to do all the um,
All that stuff. Yeah, yeah, fine. Okay,
yeah,
so I'll shut up on that stuff.
and then get back to me with your problems, which will be significant, but um, like the title says, started for 10.
Mm.
So when I run this, um, this is what happens. I'll go through each line and try and explain it when it happens. But the final output was this.
Okay, all right. And it's 10 customers listed as failed because there's no customers in the database at all yet. Is that right?
No, this was the output from the Hammer agent.
Cannot provide a list because it requires access to specific data that's not available in current context. All right, that's reasonable. It's
Yeah,
like it's
because
fair.
I'm just like, I don't really give a shit what the
Yeah,
responses are. I'm just trying to make the framework that lets us test any response.
yeah. So there's two qualitative. Well, uh, expectation two is qualitative. You got number one, which is definite and quantitative, of course. And I guess you could say expectation three is basically true or false. No question asked at the end. That's easy enough to show. Okay.
Yeah,
Start
so
for 10.
yeah,
That's a
so I
test,
guess
right?
you'll have to deal with things like, well, what does short mean? Because you'll need to make a bot that helps users write these tests, in a bot that actually assesses the quality of the expectations that the human gave, because asking things like the response is short seems dumb. So you'll need to make a bot that knows that that's an unspecific thing.
That's not gonna be hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, just give it a few examples of what's you know um, those kind of prompt responses, and prompt response will be tied to list all customers, and you don't want War and Peace, right? So you give it what would be expected, generate a whole bunch of those, and it's like the training examples. That's what I mean by short. You don't even have to define what short is. Short's not a number of words. It's like,
Yeah,
have you got all the information?
it's a pattern or a shape almost.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Um,
Yeah. No, that's that should be easy enough.
so I just need to make some tests, some notes while I think of them while we chat about this. Um,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so
The one thing I'd add, well, sorry, I'm not interrupted because you're about to talk about the assessor and so on. So you're going to take me
yeah,
through.
so all that happened here was the synth agent was called. It was told to run this test file.
Uh-huh.
I've said that all synth test files need to end in .synth.md. Upon using the system more, that seems to not even matter. Just something like put them in the test folder would be good, but even that doesn't really matter. So you
Yeah.
can mess around with what it will accept as a file. It's like, well, if it tries to read a file and it's like, oh, actually this isn't a test file, maybe that's all that's all that matters really.
Yeah.
If you go, I want to run all the tests. I thought that having this file suffix allowed the system to pull up all the tests very quickly, but who really knows? So
Yeah, and there's tunes to be played on that, right? So you could even give
yeah,
you can natural language. You could talk to it about the tests, and then it
yeah,
could generate the test and ask you questions, saying, "That's what we need an example for this one, please." That sort of thing.
yeah. So there seem to be three major components to the execution of the tests.
Mm-hmm.
Number one is this what I've called the synth agent, which is the user interface, the command line that the calling actor and uses. It's the thing that presents back the
Okay.
summaries, and it knows
Okay.
about the format of the test documents, and it knows about the concepts within it. So if I'm like
Mm-hmm.
summarize all these tests, it knows how to do that. Um, tell me all the prompts that were in this test file or that test file. How many test files have I got? Those kinds of questions. That's what it feels like that component deals with, the synth agent.
Okay.
And
Yep.
then the second agent is um, the runner isn't an agent. The runner is a function that the synth calls.
Mm-hmm.
So the synth call has this function called synth test,
Mm-hmm.
which just says, okay, here's the prompt I want to run. So it picks just one if there is several.
Yep.
Here's the expectations that I want at the end. And this is the agent under test. Go. And so that goes off and runs. But so that part of it seems to be like, I think it has to be separate because you don't want all that clutter in the main thread. You want it off in an isolated branch. It runs all its stuff. Da da da.
Mm-hmm.
But then the third part of the system is the assessor, which after the agent has settled or has exhausted its invocation, then this command, the synth test command, invokes the assessor agent on the whole state on that branch. It's like, here's the whole state,
Mm-hmm.
here's the
So that's the
expectations.
coherence. That's the coherence of the two levels of tests. Is it?
I don't understand what you mean by coherence.
Sorry. You go ahead now.
Okay.
Finish your thought. I think I know where you're going with this.
And then the assessor runs, and then when it returns its function, it is only allowed to give an array of true or false values that correlate to the expectations that were fed into it.
Mm-hmm.
Once that's completed, that is fed back into the synth agent because the run has completed and the assessment has completed, and now the synth looks at the results that came back, formats them in a way that suits the user's query, and then that's that.
Okay. All right. Got a few thoughts.
Okay.
But first, make sure I understand. I'll just put your.
Okay.
You good?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay, so to make sure I understand, the assessor, I was talking about, I remember a couple of calls ago, there's the assessment that the state is correct against the business rules. And that just gets coherence. So the list of
That's not.
things.
That's not. That's out of scope of the testing framework. You would need to. Those business rules are not. They're not the test rules, but they could be. Like you could make the test be like, check against these business rules or some other type of more complex expectation.
Okay, okay. Well, that's fine. So it's covered. The sort of thing
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, here's a Mickey Mouse example. Each customer must have one and only one bank account
Right. So you could,
associated with it.
right, but that would be a business rules thing. I guess that you would either, because not all business rules are expectations, are they?
No, some are directives. So some business rules saying customer agents must always email back after a change.
Yeah. So I don't know how you're
So they're not
gonna
all there.
I don't know how you're gonna transform business rules into test expectations.
Yeah, I've got a few ideas about that, but I
Um,
don't. I think it's a kind of medium-sized task.
And at worst, it's something that an AI can do for you when you're like, of these things, which ones are rules that can be put into this testing framework type
Yes,
of thing?
yeah, what could possibly be tested, and
Yeah,
well, even that the customer agent must email back. That would require in the test rig a persona to actually be kicked off as the customer agent, and has the customer agent actually done that? In real life, the customer agent might just say, "I'm not doing that."
yeah. Honestly,
So
it
you need
feels
to.
it feels like it would be much nicer if we could just feed the business rules straight in, and they run kind of like every time, but then you would also have some more specific rules based on the type of behavior you were trying to test. So
Yes, and
just
my
just
hope, my sorry,
you
just to
hope.
complete this up, my hope is that given uh, the test target, which has got an ERD, has got constraints and so on,
Right.
and business rules, it should be relatively straightforward to get a bunch of test rules, largely based on the ERD and the data that makes sense, that can actually be tested. So you can't test
Yeah, but
for
I'd,
a
I'd
customer
I'd
agent just
rather have the
not doing
business
it.
rules themselves be part of the test that just run like
You
every
could do
time
that.
they
The ERD is
run.
great for nudging, as in, the ERD is where we start on it, and here's a bunch of constraints and business rules. Um, Generate a bunch of,
Oh, you're trying
must
to,
have.
yeah, you're trying to test the ERD, I think.
Yeah, because the ERD is the thing that's being used, and well, what we're trying to do is the ERD when it actually is running with all the extra chaos of humans and bots, is it doing what it says without taking a stance on whether the ERD is right? But if the ERD is right, then it's like, yes, the ERD is doing the right thing. It might be the case that in usage, um, someone is using it and saying, "Oh, that was well off." In which case, you go back to the business rules and the ERD and update those. You don't take that, "Oh, it should never do that," and then put that straight into a test bed, because then,
No, what I think is the best way is that later, once we get the basics of the testing framework down, well, just like we were talking about how to do a before block that prepares the test for, like, I've got 10 customers, this has
yeah,
happened, that has happened, blah, blah, blah. Then there would also be a similar directive we could put in the test file that also hauled in all the business rules and said, every time the test runs, check all these business rules too, as well as the test specific expectations that are included too.
yeah, that would solve that. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
that'd work.
Okay.
Sorry to go through. So I was stepping through to make sure I understand. So we've got the assessor there, which
hmm,
is as we just discussed. Now we've got the prompt and the expectations. Now the expectations. Uh, what we were talking about before was I want here's a prompt and response, and create 100 of those with increasing, or decreasing temperature,
Sorry.
and
Here's a
run
prompt and
that
response.
task
What do you
out.
mean? And where'd the response come from?
It was given, so
What
it was your typical. So
you?
list
Well,
list all
I don't have a
customers.
concept of typical. I've been dealing with expectations.
Yes, but remember we're talking about creating synthetic data
Yes.
in order to, like, test edge cases.
Okay.
So
So what? One way I was going to deal with that is that if you provide a markdown block, that means
mhm.
that you are wanting to prompt the agent with this markdown directly.
Also,
But
that's an injection,
yeah,
separate from the expectations. Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
But uh, I don't. I don't understand what you just asked there. So don't take my agreement as being the
Okay.
same thing. So,
Yeah,
but
let's test that.
secondly, the if you supply the prompt as pure text, I was going to treat that as guidance for the generation of a prompt. So you would say you could supply verbatim prompts and then the bot can riff on that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you could supply, like at the start of the test, you could supply something like a description. So see how here, that's free above the prompts thing, that's free text. So you could just put a description of what you're trying to test, and we could use that to generate
Well,
the
that's
variance.
nice array. That's nice array. And then you can run. So with the description,
Yeah,
then the prompt becomes the example. So say if I say
yeah,
this test is making sure that when I ask for the number of customers, the number returned is actually the one that is held in the data that you got available. And by customer, I mean this, and so on. So you can put in a description of that one,
yeah.
and
So that
then
should be helpful for a human to read, and it should also be helpful for the synthesizer to read as well.
yeah, no, it's better because it captures the ambiguity. Because if you've got what I was proposing, which I think your way is superior, was a prompt, and here's an expect. So markdown list of all customers, and then I would have the in markdown customers equals 10 or a number. But if you allow for a description, then the AI can actually get riff on those prompts, and we can tell it to get more and more grumpy, more and more random, and start
Yeah, plus
putting
plus all, run all the
shit
known
in there.
prompt injections, and then so here's the other
Right.
tool, the other
That's a
agent
better way
that
to
you
do it.
need to make is the the generator of the system, and the generator needs to know what types of variation are useful. Like if you're gonna ask for 10 customers, ask it in numbers, words, um, ask for different numbers of customers. Like
Yeah.
that bot
And
needs to
and
be,
weirdness like three score and 10 is still a
yeah.
number,
So
right?
that bot needs to be queued up with a whole range of techniques for making useful, flared out things, including malicious things.
Yeah.
Pro- yeah,
Okay, so that works. I'm rather keen on that. So uh, above the prompt, then a description, which is what's this test going to do, and that's natural language, and then that can be fed in with the prompt, which is now the example, to have a whole bunch of things, and then the responses are assessed against the expectation. That
yeah.
makes sense to
And
me.
so that what that format also allows is that um, you might have nothing here, so we could delete this line, but so long as we had a description, the generator could do something with that.
Um, yeah,
Let's not get
yeah.
too hung up
Examples
on.
are always helpful, but
Yeah, let's
yes,
not get
yeah.
too. I think you're starting to look at how to use it usefully. I'm trying to look at what are the pros and cons of structuring in this formatted way, because what is valid format and not. That's my goals seem very different to yours at this point. I'm trying to make sure that I got a good format,
Yeah.
right?
No,
But
that's fine.
you're
It's
thinking,
complementary. It's not different. But yeah, what you're saying is, let me just get this right. Above the prompt, um, there in the format that you need can be a natural language paragraph on what the test is about,
yeah,
and that I can then use in the, pull in the description,
yeah.
and even generate prompt.
It's quite tempting because like we don't even, because it's all natural language, we don't actually need a strict format. But I think that
Well, it does help though.
we should
Yeah.
try and push for one because it just makes things easier to read to humans, because having all the natural language information of this test block you could get the bot to generate that in many, many different formats, and a human would struggle to find familiarity between some of them. So
Yeah,
that's why I think a standard format is helps with speed of communicating. If we make a bot that tries to sort of always correct your formatting, then at least the humans can quickly pick up what's happening.
yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the problems with working with bots is they can generate 2,000 words from like a 4-word question,
Yeah.
and you go, "Is that right?"
Yeah. So just so I can get this in there, what would you have put in this description area here?
Just description and natural language. So, as an example, this test is to ensure that the number of customers returned from the prompt is identical from the data that has been made available in the, I don't know what we call it, state, the database, the system,
Just the state.
state, yeah, is identical, not identity. Oh, yeah, is identical as is identical to the set. Yeah, yeah. Also, will be helpful for humans going through this
Yeah.
when they're trying to debug their own test rig.
That's right, because like the
Yeah,
humans like, what the fuck is this test about?
yeah,
Um, yeah. So anyway, so I guess there's still some sort of decorative bots that you'll need to code up. But why I was trying to get this base format in is because if you can use this base format to test and chat up the extra agents that we need, like the generator, um, then
yeah,
and like the test writer. If you can use this basic testing framework to test those bots, then you'll already start to get leverage and the quality will go up anyway.
yeah,
These agents, the assessor, all that, they need to be tested using this framework as well. Um, and it works perfectly fine so long as you've got a stable version that is your this is
yeah,
the framework we're running with, and then we're testing the next version um, as the agent under test. So
yeah.
I don't know, man. It seems fucking. It's hard to fault because it's not.
Well, that's a test spec.
It's not really doing much. That's the thing, and it's like you can test anything in this way
Yeah,
under our system, and so you can test individual agents. You can test the switchboard sitting on top of something that's switching out. You can test the behaviors of the whole
yeah.
hammer
The compound.
system, the
Yeah,
the
the compound,
entire
and then you can add personas to pretend to be humans as well.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I think it's uh I think it's on point actually.
I agree. And yeah, the I was saying before, once you give it a kind of starting state, um, then we're onto something. The
Right,
next thing would be to take a snapshot of the running system as a starting state,
right.
but then update the expectations based on.
Yeah, so that starts to come into play when we get our first set of bugs where we would want to take a, a snapshot or a commit of the running system that had the fault, and then we would sort of use that to test regression, I suppose. First of all, to um, tease out the fault or narrow down how we can make it happen, and then second of all, do
Yeah,
an anonymized version into the regression tests list so that we know that the same issue never happens twice.
yeah, and not for now, but if you think about, okay, so we got something to debug, and we've got the overall system as one compound, and it did something wrong, and then what you want to be able to do is chunk down
Yeah,
to each bot involved, but then you probably also want to dynamically create the expectations that show the fault in order to test that. But that's down the line a bit.
Mm.
Um,
Well, I mean, shit, it seems correct. Like, it seems like this is the start of the path. Like, this is. It's easy to see how this builds up, I guess.
yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, taking a step back, it's also quite comforting to see something that looks like a test spec.
Yeah.
It's like, here's the aim, here's what you got to do, and here's what we expect it to do. Does it do it? I mean, I was using that back in when we're building computer games back in bloody
It's
92.
the
It's the same thing.
foundations. Like,
Mm.
yeah, that's the
Yeah,
foundations of computing
and
machinery
then
right there.
that lovely moment where you get the test team, the go and try and break it, which is like let's just get craziness going in there.
Mm.
Good. Yeah, yeah. I'm very happy with that. I can see exactly how that's going to happen. Did a few things
Okay,
to it back
so
then, but yeah, in terms of structure, yeah, yeah.
I think what I'm working on now is I'm gonna make it so that you can write files in your home directory. So, uh, where's my crappy diagram? I love a good Excel drawer. Oi, oh dear,
Oh yeah,
what
oh
the
yeah, yeah.
hell? Someone's been here already.
I love the way writing with a mouse makes you feel like you're writing with crayons
Yeah.
on your mum's wall.
Okay, so, fuck, these pictures don't help.
No, we're talking about the switchboard there.
Okay, how do I make a
Back
new
chat.
one?
And it's different topic.
I want a new one. Why is it? Why is it so hard? I just want a new one. Reset the canvas. Here we go. Sorry. Whoa, crikey. Sorry about that. Okay. At the moment we have the Howl root repo,
Yep.
and then when you come in with a new machine, you become a branch that is an actor.
Mm-hmm.
Oh god. And then in each backchat branch, you sort of, these are all independent branches,
Yep.
right? And so the issue is that I think what I need to do next is make it so that, first of all, when GitHub over here changes with some new agents, we need to do a pull in to update that root. Then the question becomes, how does it propagate down? And that is the same question as when you're in a particular session over here, how does it propagate up? And so what I think I'm making now is that I'll let you work in your session. You can edit the test files and you can, tinker with what the expectations are, with what the prompts are, and tinker with what the agents are. And then when you get to a position where you're happy with that, you would go, okay, I'd like to save these to my home branch, which is this one,
Mm-hmm.
and then you could be having several sessions and you save them back to your home branch. And
Mm-hmm.
then when you're especially happy, you decide to push to the parent branch, which sort of makes it now available to every actor in the
And
system.
then next time you reinstantiate with the changes you've made, you're getting the new one.
Well, next time any new actor
Right.
does something, they now get the so that's system wide. But if you do this motion here where you save to your home directory, how I was going to do it was that any new backchat session gets those updated files, but also every running session also gets the updated files too. Now, I don't know if that's bad.
Oh, uh,
I was only going to
um,
do it
mm,
if the running session had not changed any of the files that were being updated.
mm-hmm. Mm. It feels dodgy because what you want to do is like freeze the system when you're doing any kind of testing, because otherwise, madness. Um,
It would definitely be frozen during the test runs. This is
mhm.
about in between the test runs when you're thinking about it and deciding what to do and updating your files and when you're editing the system basically. If you're editing an agent sysprompt, you're not running the thing.
Yeah, but it feels like it should be frozen if
Okay,
you
that's
are.
fine. If you want to have it frozen until you say so, how will I tell you? Like, if you're busy working here, but you also worked here and then you saved it, how should this session be made aware of the fact that there's now updated files?
I guess it's an option.
An option. Where does
Right.
an option go?
So, as in, okay, the files are being updated. Um, do you want to incorporate the changes and then rerun all the tests? Because you may not want to say if
Yeah, no, no, no. So tell me how you were made aware that the files had changed.
it would just be a change of state on the file, surely.
No,
Um,
you're the user. You're in Chatland. How did the system? You're expecting to be able to explicitly say that you want to update with the new files, and I'm asking you in your three box interface, how
yeah.
can I tell you that the option is available to update?
I'd want in the interface something's updated here. I don't know whether it fucks up the testing I've been doing for the last 4 hours. Um, the next prompt that I put in, say, okay, rerun tests, uh, have the bot say, just to make you aware, there's been an update. Do you want me to run the tests on the merged or what you had? So it intercepts that.
Okay, so when the state changes here, which could be because either another branch pushed up into the home or
Yep.
the higher level branch pushed down, then
Yep.
you would expect someone working here to have their bot updated with a small message saying, um,
Yeah.
files have changed, buddy.
Right.
You can ignore them or you can do
Yeah.
something with them,
'Cause-
right?
yeah. Because if you didn't do that, okay, so there's two things. Maybe it's pertinent, and maybe actually, say you've done 4 hours of testing on one thing, you've been doing all your changes, you haven't pushed that. Let's say,
Oh yeah.
you've also
Okay,
been
yeah,
doing
fine.
something
So
else.
it's basically you're saying like it could be very confusing if you're deep down the rabbit hole if I just
Yeah,
auto updated, even if it was changing things that you
yeah,
hadn't changed, it changes your memory of them. And so
Exactly, and it's like, who the fuck ordered that?
your
It's like,
expectation as a worker in the system is that the system remains unchanged until you get notified about it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and then you
Okay.
can find out whether you care or not.
Well, that's perfectly fine. How then? Let's assume that if instead of this being your home directory, what if this was the CRM? And now a customer record changed because another customer agent updated it, and you're over here working on something to do with that same customer agent. How would you
Uh,
expect that to go?
I think we talked about this about a month ago, wasn't it? What expect is exactly the same behavior. It's like you're working on this, you're changing the, or you're working on this customer, and
Yeah,
something has changed, and it's like,
but
this
this
has
is
been
now, yeah,
this has been
so
updated.
that's fine whilst we had sort of goal oriented threads, right? But now we're dealing with long thread, which means that this customer service agent might have been in the same thread for several weeks now. Now you
Yeah.
can't, and they might have done all sorts of different things. We need to somehow call time, like time to update, like your current task has finished. It's now time to update. I mean, I would argue that I agree with you. If I'm working on a system, I don't want things to automatically change. But then, if I'm working in the CRM, I do want to know that someone else changed something. I don't want to be outdated because the data is it's somehow different. You know, like the value is in the fact that it's the same as everyone else. Whereas in a
Well, I
test
guess the
environment,
step
the
back
value is
from
that
that.
it's stable.
I guess the step back from that is to be polite, because what you don't want is like so much shit all over your work, right?
Right.
But you
Right.
could say, this change has been made, uh, make and some description of what the change is, and saying it's going to be updated. Sorry, man, but at least you know about it, and so you might go, "Fuck, okay, all right, I'll need to go back through the loop and do what
Yeah,
I
but
was doing."
okay,
But
so
you
if
don't
there's
want it in the
if there's
background.
if there's 10,000 customers, you kind of don't want to be notified every time everyone changes. You only want to be notified if the one that you're working on changes.
Oh yeah, but that information is available because we know about proximity of what you're doing at the moment. So if you're
So are
working
you saying
in,
that if I'm busy working as a customer agent, um, I should con- continually update the system state with everything else that changed in the CRM, except if you start working on a particular customer, then I will interject to tell you that, hey, this thing changed out from under
yeah,
you.
I think
Is
what
that
we
right?
settled on when we talked about it last time is like first come first served, but it'd just be polite. So say if two agents working on or two sessions working on the same customer,
Yeah.
one is updating the name, another is updating the date of birth. First in to commit, um,
Okay, so in
doesn't
that
change
system
what you're doing
then,
at the
you
minute.
what you need is the concept um of a focused record. And so if I now need to track, and the bots need to help keep track of what is the record under focus. That could be the routes, it could be a
Yep.
customer, it could be any individual file. If that individual file looks like it might get edited, that's when we should start mentioning when it changes, right?
Yeah, yeah. And you don't necessarily need to give in testing. Maybe that's an extreme case, but in normal use,
Mm.
it's just polite to say, "Oh, John in the other office is also is just putting a change to the thing that you're working on,
Right.
and here's the change." And you go,
All right, so once more from the top then. If you're in the customer record and you're asking about the customer and you're saying you're trying to like could be doing anything, you're trying to compose a haiku to tell them that they're now banned from the system and you're looking
"Yeah,
how to make it really nice, whatever. Because in our background thread, we've determined that you are currently focused on a particular record,
Yep.
then if someone else does anything about that or edits it, we're gonna interject with something and be like, hey, John just changed this record, and we're gonna update it automatically in the background, but we're gonna tell you that what you see in thread is now stale.
Yep.
Is
Yep.
that cool?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's cool. I mean,
So
it's the
we
same
don't.
thing as like you getting like a text message saying, "Oh, I've just overwritten this file," and you go, "Fuck."
Okay,
All
so
right, fair enough.
whatever's in the thread, we don't change it because it was correct at the time that the message was generated.
Yep.
But as a courtesy, we track what your focus is right now, and only if your focus right now changes from when we last told you about the thing,
Yep.
then we will mention to you that it has changed, and then you need to do something with that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that's reasonable. We could get more sophisticated, but I don't think we need to.
All right,
And
but
you
if
could go back saying,
yeah,
last Tuesday we
so
were talking about
then
this.
you now need a system flag that says to behave that way in the CRM, but when you're testing and in your home directory, you're asking to behave a different way, which is don't update by default. Only when there's changes to anything, tell you.
Oh, maybe we could combine those two. So, say if there's been a change, which means everything you've done before is stale. Everything you do after this will be stale. That might be okay in the testing regime because you might look at it and go, well, that's nothing to do with me. I'm just going to continue with my rabbit hole
Mm.
and then come back, and then I'm going to do the commit that see is necessary. So you might not want to lose your train of thought. So, for example, someone's changed the name.
Oh, right. Okay, so
You're
what
working
it
on.
feels like is there's a definite distinction between different actors. Like if you're the same actor and you change something in a different thread, I'm
Oh
not
no,
going to
sod you.
tell you.
Yeah, yeah, sod you. It's like your own problem, right?
What'd you say? Sod you.
Yeah, as in, if I've got two copies of a text file and
Yeah,
I'm editing both,
yeah.
and I saved one over another by mistake, that's your own problem.
Okay. So if the actor ID is the same, then the merge behavior is your own. It's your problem. You should have kept it
Yeah,
in your head that this is what was happening.
yeah,
When it comes time to merge, I'll notify you just like any other merge. I'm like, this was overwritten by you, moron.
yep, yep,
So what do you want to do, right? And then I'll help you through
yep,
that. Okay.
yeah.
But if in the CRM, if a set of data gets updated by another actor, I'm gonna just pull it straight down, right?
Um, yes,
Okay.
and
Now,
you're just going to say, right, this has
what
changed.
what that means is that in this case, top level HAL is like the CRM, and the actor home directory is like an individual actor. So if top level HAL changes, I'm going to automatically update home directory. Does that sound right?
Mm,
Because otherwise,
yeah.
people are going to be left drifted. Like this should always reflect the system state.
Yeah, I guess yes, it does sound right. The only thing is, no, that does sound right. It's like
Right? It's
it's now
borderline
changed.
in some ways. It is a borderline
Yeah,
call to make, but I think for the liveliness of the system, because you're never really supposed to work on the home directory live, you only ever fork it and then work on the fork.
yeah.
I think it makes sense to keep it in sync with the top level master branch, the main branch of
Yeah.
HAL. Yeah?
I think it's going to be no more onerous than you go to use an app on your laptop and it says, right, I'm updating.
Right,
Like,
but in this case, we would do the update automatically in the background always, and we would just simply leave your whatever you were working on, everything old is going to be left stale, and it's just going to maybe have a little blinker in the UI that just says, it's there's changed files upstream. You should pull.
yeah, that would be super helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
because
Well,
you could just keep going down your
yeah,
rabbit hole.
you're right. It's rude. It's rude to force update the thing that you're working on, but you're never working in your home directory. The home directory is just where you store stuff and launch from.
Yeah,
So, okay, I'll put that in, and we'll just see how it feels to use. I think that it's cheap. It's cheap enough to make it that way. It sounds about right. We can just use it and play with it and tweak it from there.
yeah, yeah. It's also for the immediate use case of the CRM. Without a large number of staff is probably going to be quite a rare thing, and even something that you could just tell everyone, like, hey, I'm working on the bots.
Yeah, I think okay, so we're actually really talking about the cosmetics of being polite because no matter
Yeah,
what, no matter how we handle the presentation of that situation, when you're going to merge, you're definitely going to find out about it because you'll be like, "Whoa,
right.
hey, whoopsie."
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, okay, all right. So we're actually
yeah,
talking about a cosmetic thing, so we can even not care about that for a while.
yeah. I think so.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, it's definitely not core.
okay. And so you need to think about how to make a generator bot after we have a way to test any bot, I think. Right?
Yep, yep. So given a target, how to generate or how to take it in. So
Given
these
this
are
given
they're
this
given.
information,
Yeah,
how would you
and also,
generate more prompts?
so what I'll do with that, I think it's important to. Okay, so I'd write a bot that takes in a bunch of tests like this in this
Yeah,
format.
yeah.
I'd also make it aware of the ERD and the associated things, just to give it a fighting chance. Um, and then I'd say generate on the different temperatures and different personas or whatever,
Yeah.
and then output a whole bunch of prompts, and then those prompts would be run by the test runner, presumably. I was like, okay, so we've now got for started for 10 test, we've now got 100 prompts, all of which I'm trying to fuck with, this, knowing what the target is, tries to fuck with it, creating increasing, weirdness. Um, that needs to be handed over to something to actually run it and come back with the ticks and crosses and so on. So that's how I do it,
Okay.
and that doesn't seem too onerous. I think I can see how that would work. And then it would be I'll just generate an output. For now, I'll just generate an output, and then it'll be fed back in to the runner to get this.
Well, it'd go into a file first because you need to be able to recall how the generator. You need to be able to drill into the test, like
Oh
the
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And there is a separate active step. So if you've gone through one cycle and it's generated these 100 prompts to test this one test, and you get an error. What you don't want is those 100 prompts being regenerated and the error is gone. So, these ephemeral errors that just turn up every now and again.
yeah. You don't
Uh,
want that. You want to be able to freeze it
yeah,
and get it back. Like an error in a probabilistic system is a big deal because you
yeah,
might never get
exactly.
it back.
So there's an action there as a tester I'd say, right, generate a whole bunch of tests, run those tests. It's like, okay, that's odd. Don't change those tests. I'm going to chunk it down. I'm going to look more carefully at what was actually said, and then maybe make a change. And it's like, then I want to run it on the old tests again, and then I want to say, right, run it on a completely new set of tests. Does it come back up? No. Okay. Run it again. I could do it as many times as I want. So like, generate 10 times 100 tests for each test, and I'll get coffee.
Yeah, but there's a technique to be done there too, where you would set a concurrency number, and then you'd want it to stop as soon as it hit a fail. Like you wouldn't want it to just,
Oh yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know, like
yeah. That's just nice for your token count really and your time.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
well, look,
So
man. I mean, it's not. I'm not feeling a lot of resistance from you here. It's not
not at all. It seems
perfectly logical in a way.
yeah. And it's how you do it with an infinite number of testers. You get an
So
infinite number of
once
testers
you
and an
so
infinite number of test writers.
this is an example of the exact test run, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll hopefully give you an extra flag or ability where the assessor can also provide comments as well. So it's like, why do you think it failed? Because
Well, also on which one. So that assessment is all we need to know. But then on expectation one, 10 customers listed, and we've generated 100 prompts.
no, no, hang
99
on, wait,
worked.
wait,
Okay.
different level. This is just the way to look at this is, I believe, to say that this is the raw run. This is
Uh-huh.
an actual run that happened. This was the actual prompt that was used. There was a specific outcome from the agent under test,
Oh, I
and
see. All right.
right,
Right.
and
So if
then
there's 100 prompts, you get 100
you get 100 of
of
these.
these.
You get 100 of these,
Right.
right? And I'll
Right.
also add in there a capability where the assessor can provide its debug data, like why did it say it failed? Because you might want to dig into the reasoning that the assessor used, because you might not understand why it failed, because you'd look at
Yeah.
the output and
Because it
you'd
might have
look at the
generated list all douchebags, and it
yeah,
has
you'd
zero
look at the
douchebags.
because this the output of this test needs to also say what the result was. So I need to make a nice way to present that, because it's like, here's the output, here's the prompt, here's the expectation, and then in debug mode, here's why the output did not meet the expectation. This is why I got across, and then that'll help the human understand more, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
next layer up is the summarizing layer, and that's gonna change to be um, it can't show you the exact output or the exact response because there isn't one. It can't show you the exact prompt because there isn't one, but it can show you the expectations are identical between all the runs, and it can show you a percentage score like
Yes.
99. I got
But
99 tests and I only failed one type of thing.
yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be hard. So say if you got 100 tests running, 10% fail. Part of the information that may be helpful is to get the assessor to say, okay, so what's common between the 10 that failed is not reflected in the 90 that passed, and give you some kind of hint. It's like if, for example, list all customers for
Oh yeah,
interviews and
okay.
say,
Well, that's so that's yet another agent, which is the agent that can. So at the start here, we'll just simply list a fraction that could be like n of m passed, right?
right,
And
right,
then you can make an agent that then can digest all the failures and say, what was in common with the failures, and then that would be like the little commentary underneath. It'd be like everyone that failed appeared
Yeah,
to have this characteristic, or just a light discussion about.
exactly. And we're getting into heuristics at that point. It's just doing what you do in your first pass. So if you've got 100 of these results, 10% failed, 90% passed. The very next thing you're going to do is look at the 10% that failed and go, why did they fail and the other ones passed? Which is what that
Yeah,
bot would do,
yeah, and so
or
you
help
should
with.
be able to
Yeah,
get that. You should be able to get that summary dashboard, and then you should be able to chat to the synth agent and drill down into the exact failure, see it, rerun it, rework it,
yeah,
modify the files, um,
yeah.
all
And
that,
that,
right? Focus on it.
now this is not for now, definitely not for now, but so in that situation, 10% failed, 90% passed. And you go, oh, okay. And, it might be the case that whenever a customer puts in, say, their customer ID, which is slightly different, which is one of the use cases, and every time it's slightly different, it fails. And then, okay, so let's put some intelligence into the bot that deals with that.
Mm.
And now you rerun their static tests,
Hmm.
and now only 2 of those 10 fail, but another 8 up here also fail. It's like,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
So it's like, and now I want to compare the first snapshot, the 10 and the 90, to the 2 and the 8, and go, okay, what's going on here? And then you get an idea of how to drill down. But yeah, that's not for now. But
yeah.
I can see how that
That
works.
is definitely how testing goes. I don't know how to make that any better. That feels like an inescapable um
Oh,
junction
that's
that
no,
we have to go through. Like we
that's definitely bot land. That's nothing to do with structure.
yeah. So
Because if
we'll
you get a
and
list
we'll
raw, you
yeah.
could actually take it into a completely different bot and do the same
No
thing.
matter what we do to get this base system running, we're gonna hit that problem eventually. And I have every faith that we'll find nice, helpful ways to help that and make it nice. Because the ultimate that we're trying to get to here is to be able to feed the failures back into the creator bot to have a
Yeah, and
first
suggest what
go
change.
at
Yeah,
solving it itself and
yeah,
reconciling about, so yes, it fixed it for this test, but it also failed on these other tests that used to pass, and sort of,
exactly. And
you know,
now that's like a traditional search space of, okay, fix that. Okay,
yeah,
is it your min max? Is this local minima?
yeah, yeah.
All that kind of
So
good
all
stuff.
those kinds of things, and then ultimately identifying when it's like, look, I tried my
Yeah,
darndest, I
these two
can't get
things are
any further.
incompatible.
Yeah, right. And then you're
Exactly.
like, I need a human, or I need some of the rules changed because I just can't make this thing work.
Exactly. Exactly. It fits. Yeah,
um,
exactly.
yeah. Okay. Well, this is feeling it's feeling like home straight now because these things are inevitable. And so,
Yeah, I agree.
what now?
Well, the okay. So let's if we just think about the tests.
Mm,
Um, we've got reading in files. Yep. We need to write out files in terms of the prompts and the generated prompts, and then feed it back in. So that's the same kind of toing and throwing with static data. And some way of architecting that or flowing that, saying as a test runs this, runs that, runs this. Once we have that, then the rest is kind of niceness, isn't it? It's being polite and helpful. So, for example, if we, at the moment, the state of the art at the moment, if I were to write a bot that took the description and the prompt and generated 100 prompts into a file,
mm,
then how would I feed that back in here such that I now get 100 responses in this interface?
Oh, so what I was gonna do there was let me show you. I fat fingered the caps lock. Good on me. This thing.
Two seconds, sorry.
But you're awfully close to my side of the disc there. I think you'll see there's a line on the
Hey, personal space, man.
thing.
I have noticed, and this is, I was noticing things earlier on, and I don't know if it's going to come up in the video, but for some reason, I seem to be flicking the bird automatically quite a lot. I don't know what I'm doing with my hand. It's like, yeah, absolutely. It's like, you're picking up wrong. It's like, yeah, fucking hell, man.
Right, so I was gonna submit the results by writing it into the file as a foldable summary that just gave the summarized view. And then if you wanna talk about it more, you have to chat your way down, because links to the actual file are going to be I can't. You could have asked for 10,000 runs. I can't put that into the file. That I can't put that into the test file. So I'm gonna need to, like, I'm gonna
So
need to
what would,
link out
what would
at some point.
what would those bullets be in this example?
They would be the expectations, because the expectations are a manageable number at every point. Like, the expectations are not variant generated, only the number of test runs is. So the foldable amount would just be like last test run, time of test run, blah blah blah, and then down here would be the expectations and the statistical results of each one.
Right, and then when you went into that, you'd want to then see presumably just a
When you went
bullet
into
list.
it, because I think what I need to do is have a separate file to the synth, to the test specification file, that is a run file. And if you
Mm-hmm.
click on a link, you go into that file, and that's a very different format, because it can be quite big, because it would have all of the prompts and all of the, it would have the individual runs in that file, right?
Right. Okay. So, what would it be? So, if I clicked on, say, expectation one, and beside that, I've got expectation one is filled 2% of the time, 10% of the time, whatever. I would then go into a separate file which showed you
Yeah.
the whole thing.
Yeah, and I guess I should be able to click on the, I should be able to click on an exact failure and be taken to it. Like it's almost like a test log needs to be stored as a separate file, because it's too much data, but we do need to store that somewhere. It's too much data to be presented to the user, but if they want to drill into it, then we'll open up these files and take them to it, I think.
Yeah. So it's almost hierarchical. So, if we start on the example one failed 10% of the time, it's
Mm,
like click, and then it's like failed on these tests.
yeah.
Then what would I want to do? I would want to ingest that into another bot. Let's say 10% failed, 90%.
Oh, right. So you'd want to
Where,
say, take all the failures here
yeah,
and just focus on those for now, right? So
yeah,
you'd be then making a temporary synth file that had those prompts only in. It was like
yeah,
highly focused because it's only dealing with those prompts, and then
yeah,
you would twiddle with the agents and twiddle with this and that while you were running. Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And probably what I would do, and this maybe is a matter of taste, but in testing, what we'll probably want to do is, okay, so let's clear all those, fiddle around, and then let's chunk back up to the original set with the whole 100, rerun the 100. It's like, all green, excellent, or shit, something else is happening. Okay, I'll go down there and work these out, back up, uh, original test, all green, excellent, back up. So there's, I guess what I'm saying is when you're drilling down, um, in that regime, what would be helpful is to rerun the tests, but only a subset of the tests. And you're rerunning those tests in order to check some kind of change that you've made.
Yep. So I want it to be so that whenever you change a file, it will detect the change of file and rerun all the tests that that file impacts in any
Yeah.
way. And then,
Also, yes, but I guess what I'm saying is, well, yes, but what I'm implying by that is there's a hierarchy. So there's a test run, let's say, the results of which are this. It's like, okay, so I want to take these 10, make a change, and rerun against these 10. So that now you've got another set
yes.
of results.
What?
There's
So
10
you don't
results.
want to make a dedicated test file. You just want to scope the running down.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you want to leave the test file as it is, but you want to scope the running down to these 10 that were
yeah,
dynamically generated, but now you want to make them lock
yeah.
them so that the generator is frozen in place while you're working on the system to get it working, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the analogy is, if you're coding and there's an error on a thing, you're working on that error, and you go, okay, right, and then you think you fixed that error, that's fine, right? We run the full test suite. It's like, yeah, all good because I've now fixed this error, or no, that's caused another problem. Okay, I need to
Okay,
sort
so
that.
that would mean that the
Okay,
synth agent, which is in charge of invoking the runner, needs to know about scoping and limiting. So it would, that's the thing that you'd chat to and be like, I just want to limit it to this,
yep,
and then that's what you'd sort of work on. Um, I'm imagining that you'd open a second browser tab, and you'd tell that browser tab to watch this thread, and so that you could see the test results in this second tab while you're busy saving stuff in this other
yep,
tab. And
yep,
then
yep,
you got like a summary dashboard would be up in the state board. You'd see different lights going green and red and whatever. um, it's all happening nice and fast because you got this whole huge machine that's doing it all in parallel, but you're just seeing the lights go green, red, and orange across all your suite, even though you're focused in over here on just a small number twiddling away. It seems easy to add multiple people, so you and I could both be working on what could be quite a large test tree, and we've got a dashboard of all the lights for all the tests over here, but we're able, each of us, able to drill into a specific area and just work on that and
yep.
then see the impact over here, right?
Exactly, exactly. So you're working down here, and then you chunk up. Well, on the dashboard, if it's running every time, that's cool. Working down here, and so okay. So we're now going from 10 to 5 that are failing. I've not broken anything else. Happy days.
Mm.
Okay, so there's 5. Right, I'm just going to write something into the prompt to exclude whatever it was that was fucking up. It's like all green, fixed, happy. Or you've got the original 10, and you clear out all 10, and then something else goes off. Shit, undo. Right, I'm not going to do that. I need to do something else. So it's very much by analogy of um, rerunning all tests for every code change.
Yeah.
Um,
Because that's, I mean, I can't work any other way than that. So I get it,
yeah,
each time I hit save, it reruns everything that I was just doing, and
right.
I see
Yeah,
it
it's
all.
exactly by analogy. It's exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
But when you're doing that, what you want is okay. So I'm working down this part. I want to be focused on this. I want to rerun just these tests because that cycle is going to be quite fast, and the overall run might be either relatively slow or add additional information that you need to like scroll down or find or whatever. It's like, no, I'm working on this function here, and therefore it'd be great to have a, overall green button or yeah, amber button. It's like, yeah, it's sort of, or you've just added another problem by doing this change and so on. But if we model it on continuous integration, I think we would not go far wrong, which is essentially what we're talking about.
Okay, so this sounds great. Um, that sounds great, but
There's the but. And says, but everything before is bullshit. Where's that from? I think it's Game of Thrones, wasn't it? It's brilliant.
um, look, I can't really see a fault in any of that. So that would mean that we could sort of configure a particular suite of tests up where we had a failure rate. Let's just say we had 68% pass and a bunch of fails. We could then take that snapshot, put it on Upwork, and be like, look, here's $500 to anyone who can solve this thing, because we just gotta, once we've specced out the base system, it could be very time consuming to twiddle amongst all these bots to get them to all work in concert.
Well, this is it. Because in real, okay, so in software, what you want is all test passes. But this is in a system where you create effectively static tests. Well, I know you can do it algorithmically to a certain point, but what you're not doing is you don't have the ability to generate dynamically an arbitrary large number of tests, some of which might fail, and so on, which is what we were talking about the other day. So if you get the percentage failures of each run, then you can start running multiple times. So this is where they come into the Monte Carlo thing. It's like, well, this given we've maxed it out 10,000 different prompts for 1,000 different core tests, and it fails 99.9% of the time, and we're certain about that to about 70% assurance or whatever. Now that's a reasonable level. If you start going twiddling with a system that doesn't need to be 3 nines or any more than 3 nines, then don't fuck with it. Yeah, sure, it fails on some of them, but because we can just rerun these, and we're now getting stats on what each of these tests actually do. We can also generate these prompts using personas of different angriness or pissiness, and see what happens. Then we start to get a probabilistic view of it, which is what you need from getting a certain system out of uncertain behavior. But there's nothing more needed than what we just described to do that.
Okay, so your point was that our framework can handle that type of
Yeah,
usage. Yeah,
yeah,
and you were really saying that we don't need it to be perfect. So a lot of the time we're okay with it being imperfect because it's good
yeah,
enough, right?
yeah, exactly.
Right.
Or just be able to state
Okay.
what
And
this
so,
is. It's
all
like,
right, but
yeah,
and do you agree with me that this could make a good form of a work package where we can sketch out the system, put some base prompts and expectations in, and be like, it's really not working, and we'll pay to have it made working, and we need,
Yeah. Well,
98%.
interesting enough on that, you could put an escrow saying this system has a probability of working 40% of the time. Anyone commit that adds 5% of that, and we don't care where it is, gets $1,000. There you go.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was
Crack
getting
on.
at. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you can basically say that, we can build a system that our customers are using, and it's got some bits that they don't like about it, and you're like, well, how much is that worth? And then because we can trigger the payout
Yeah.
permissionlessly, we can invite others to come and use the system, get paid, and they're like, yep, done.
Yeah, but interesting enough with this test format, I think you could probably also do. So there's bits that the customer doesn't like, and there's bits that actually simply don't work at all.
Mm.
Probably you could also add in the bits they don't like. If you can model a persona about, who's the judge of what like means, you create, okay, so the customer agents don't like the fact that this happens. It's like, well, okay, let's run against a bunch of tests generated by that, and this percentage. If you manage to get above this certain percentage, it automatically triggers. The automatic trigger thing, I think, with this format becomes really quite trivial because it's like, I'll give you $1,000 for a 10% improvement in this figure.
Yeah, right. You just put your specs in there and then say how much it's worth. That's pretty
Yeah,
good. So you go
nice,
from,
isn't it?
it's a way to, with a very small amount of information, specify a very accurate way to know when work was done right, because the
Right,
because the bots are just slamming it with all the
exactly.
variations.
And you remember how, going back, a while back, when we were trying to do this by hand before we accelerated it with AI, we were talking about, well, how do we know when an escrow thing has been done? We were talking
Hmm.
about judges who had reputation,
Oh yeah.
and would look at it and so on.
Oh
It's
yeah.
exactly the same thing, but it's now AI.
Well, that's even better because it's not. Oh, why is that so much better? It's because like the QA needed to be holy almost, like to be
Yeah,
right,
which is why we put reputation in.
Yeah,
It's like
but
we incentivize that you don't
right,
get paid unless you're holier than thou.
right. But if now we're like, well, it's just the AI agent is not holy, but when it's run enough times with enough variance,
It gets pretty close.
you know that it's unlikely to be wrong. And
Yeah,
that's only possible in a natural language system because a code based system can't be treated that way. It's either right or it's not right. But a natural language system has all this fuzz, which is typically the enemy. We just made it our friend by saying that now you can do automatic QA with assurance levels, with
yeah, exactly.
guarantees on how holy is it. Is it like 98% holy or is it 60% holy?
Yeah, and you can trigger it on what level you care about. It's like, is good enough good enough?
That's
It's
pretty
like,
cool.
probably. Yeah, but in terms of your structure, I don't see anything you need to add to this. There's a
It's
bunch of pods
like,
running it, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And it's
Well, that
only,
kind of
that's
falls out.
fascinating. That's fascinating because it's another benefit of having a purely text based system
Yeah,
that you can't get with a traditional software system or, heaven forbid, a user interface.
I keep mentioning it, but you mentioned it to me first, and I didn't think along these lines. You mentioned it years ago about your early career was on how to make reliable systems from
Yeah,
unreliable components.
yeah,
Um, it's it's exactly the same, but
yeah,
also now we're dealing with unreliable outputs from asking you know, questions which we can also generate. And so it's getting closer to how CERN
Yeah.
does it. And CERN talks about, it's not proven until it's 5 sigma. Now, that's really quite hard to do, but he said,
Right.
if this thing put up for escrow passes with 1 sigma, 2 sigma,
I'll
you get
give you
tested.
20 bucks for Six
Yeah,
Sigma.
like
Um,
that.
that's fascinating, and it's fascinating because it changed how a system gets delivered. Like you're no longer you're delivering a probabilistic system anyway,
Yeah,
and by being able to deliver it with these statistical performance measurements, you avoid the whole problem of needing a reputation based QA. Like it's just crazy that you just eliminate an entire piece of the problem.
it's cool,
Just
isn't it?
yeah,
It's really cool,
yeah,
and
it's
it
mental.
feels it feels like software is moving into more the way that hardware. So if you buy a server
Yeah,
or
it's
buy
a
a hard drive
hardware
and
is
that sort of thing,
probabilistic, but it's
right?
just so reliable that we think of it as certain, but it really isn't.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But software is so random that actually you end up with a contract saying we'll as soon as you say what the problem is, we'll put out a fix in 24 hours, and therefore you need a service contract,
Right.
which is a completely wrong way of doing it. Really, what you should say is right. What you've got here gives you this probability, and if you put another server into your stack, you should be able to work out the probability of putting that in, right? And if you need something more reliable for your hard drive, then go to SSD or this more expensive SAN or whatever you need. Right, there it is, but it's probabilistic as opposed to,
Right.
um,
Right.
you know,
You're right.
apologetic. Sorry, I've just taken down the world, says Microsoft. Don't worry, we'll fix it. Right, no, that's shit.
Yeah. Okay. Um, that's awesome. So that plays into our model of escrow. Basically, a packetized invention machine is made even stronger by the fact that probabilistic deliverables avoid the need for a human QA if you have a statistical QA. So,
And also, interesting enough, you can put up escrow against a non-specific problem. You can just say, I want this test, which is a fixed thing. I want this test to pass at a probability
right.
of 60% and not
All right,
50%.
so we could actually give people an agent that helped to like idiot proof their request too. Like it would try
Right,
and
yeah,
beaver a way to generate something that the AI judge said, "Yep, that's a win," but it's like slamming it with all these different angles, and then
exactly.
it's like,
Because
nah,
that's where innovation comes. It's like, oh, right, you know what? If I just change this one wee thing here,
yeah,
then I've just like got 4 or 5
no, that's
escrows
fascinating.
because
Okay, so how do we
all the
get
tests are passed. It's like, boom.
how do we get that going? I guess we just build this base test system, and we'll just use it on the CRM, and then these other
And
really
then build
cool
it up.
things will just pop out. I think
Yeah, yeah. But the
because
idea of putting out an escrowed task that is non-specific,
yeah,
except for the very specific thing of moving
yeah.
the stats that
Except
this
for the fact
does.
that you burned about $5 worth of credits on it to make sure that it was a genuine question that couldn't just be the AI didn't know how to answer it, basically.
Yeah, yeah, sure. But even that's fixable, of course, uh, by an Overwatch and so on. But yeah, it's nice.
All right.
We spent a lot of time on that reputation model, but
Turns
didn't
out
get
it's
anywhere.
worthless, eh?
Yeah, excellent. Let's get rid of stuff.
Turns
Okay.
out it's worthless. I wonder what else is worthless. Anyway, um, the next slightly different point I wanted to bring up was the separation of correctness and user interface.
Mm-hmm.
Where user interface means like the etiquette or the mannerisms or the shape of the response,
or tone,
the
all that kind
tone
of
and
stuff.
all that. Yeah, and so
Yeah.
I can think of two ways to deal with this. Number one is that we generate these agents to be correct, and then we have a second pass that deals with tone, and that tone is individually configurable between organizations and individuals. So
Hmm.
that's one way to handle that. Because what you don't want, for example, is to have any part of the prompt for the synth agent to be all tangled up on how to say a certain thing necessarily, right? Or
Yeah.
you don't want to spend too much effort on that. But then you get individual humans that want to hear it a certain way or want it transformed a certain way, and so you don't want to contradict the prompt. You don't want to rewrite the prompt. You don't want to, and so
Hmm.
the second solution to that is to design these prompts to be modular, where you have a portion of the prompt that is definitely for correctness, and then you have a separate portion that is loaded in separately that's about presentation, and it would allow for people to customize the presentation tone and all those things separately from the correctness without the latency overhead of a second transformative pass. So those are the options. What do you think of those ones?
I think the first one, if I understand this correctly, I think the first one is definitely right.
Yeah,
So you have a bot that talks in ERD and
yep,
Mermaid and Markdown
yep.
and gets the correct answer,
Mm-hmm.
and then that correct answer someone has gets transformed through the bot saying, "I only want to talk to this overall system." As far as they're concerned,
Yep.
the bot they're talking to is the system. Talk to me like an 18th century French
Right.
revolutionary.
Right. Right. Like only talk to me in rhymes or something
Yeah,
like that, right? Okay, so
yeah,
you
yeah,
reckon that the two pass system is the best one where we separate the concerns of presentation from the concerns of correctness and consistency
yeah. I
and
agree.
benefit.
Yes, and the reason I'm saying that is again, number one, what you don't want is the prompt that actually is there to give the correct answer.
Mm,
We don't want many copies of that because they've added in a
no,
thing saying
you want
17th
it
century
concentrated,
French
right? And you
revolution.
want to
Yeah,
work on it in a in an isolated space where it only because correctness is hard enough without like trying to then
yeah, having many
change.
copies.
Yeah.
Really, that duplication is the issue.
Mm.
You could easily add in a final thing saying tone only talk to me like this,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're
and
right.
then
All
it's
right. All
fine.
right.
The
Well, that's
rest of
cool.
it is like,
A
yeah,
second past a tone transform is definitely the way to go then.
yeah, I agree.
Yep.
Yeah,
And then that
yeah.
means that the org can change it to anything they like. If they want a button,
Or the
there's your
individual
button.
could say, talk to me slutty like, and
Yeah,
get the
right.
giggle while they're dealing with customer agent.
And then
But
I guess that would allow you to add on features like if I'm like every 10 minutes tell me a joke. Um,
yeah, yeah,
like so that's your basically your user interface is the wrapper around the core logic of the system.
it's sort of like the personal how. I know we've been using how this
Yeah,
specific way here, but it's
yeah.
like your personal how is, you know,
It's your
talk
preference.
to me dirty while I'm at work,
Right.
and tell me a
It's
joke every 10 minutes, and
right,
then
right,
every hour tell me what the weather is outside. That's
right,
nothing to do with the system.
right. Okay, so that's preferences, usability. Okay, that's cool. We can. I think we for the trucking guys will need to demonstrate the basics of that because some of their first questions were around about format and presentation. But those concerns are separate from ours. We're like, we need to know that the system was correct, and we don't want
Yeah,
to have to mess around with how you want to see it in the same spot. So that's cool. That's pretty good. I think I can
I agree.
implement that. Um, okay. Well, man, it's the weirdest feeling. I'm like out of, I feel like my career's over.
Well, it's well, you're finally breaking free from the code that you so sorely detest.
Yeah, and so, like, if I just get this little testing system done, then
Yeah, and this,
it's just bugs and performance tuning from here on
yeah,
in.
and all the substrate stuff necessary to get the testing is exactly the substrate stuff I need to get. You know, the any kind of arbitrarily sized combination of bots working together is
You
always
mean
same.
like for the CRM?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So what seems to be the pattern is that you'll come up with a bit of a topography or some orchestration that needs to happen, and then I might need to make some code before I can figure out how to make that piece NL. And so there's sort of a bit of jiggling around, but it's all just glue. It's not.
Yeah.
It's you know. It's not. It's not. It's not hard. It's not.
And there's I think what I'm seeing is a decreasing number of times that you're saying, "Shit, I'm going to have to go
I'll see you
deploy
in
to
a few
Artifact for
months.
4 days." Yeah,
I
and
know.
it's like,
Yeah, it's like it feels like that time is over.
well, here's a test for you. If we're done on this one, now, apologies. I did hope to run some tests on this, but as for previously mentioned, this morning was blown out,
Mm,
so I've not run tests. But
mm.
let me show you what I've been doing on the project bot,
Okay, okay, cool.
which really just at the moment is
Yeah, so
run.
just before we move on, is that if
Uh,
I just keep going with this system and I give you that save and merge to the parent branch thing that I drew on Excalibur, like this thing,
yeah, yeah,
will that get you working on this platform primarily
I think so. I'm going to find out when it works, but
when it lands? Okay, all right.
I cannot
And
think of anything
this
else
is the
that's
right thing to do for me right now, right? Like this is the thing that
yep,
helps you most, yeah?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's that movement of being able to um, talk to a bot, and then that bot, well, for example, going through the testing thing, it's like run these tests. It's like, okay, I'm going to get a whole bunch of tests. That those tests, they uh, generate on the fly a whole bunch of prompts, saved, run the prompts, come back with the results, and then the next step. You don't have to do anything new in the artifact here. This is all about the same thing of passing information between bots. It's like then architect that. So okay, take those, and now I want to work on this system, and then it's like I want to commit this, and then it's merge. It's all the same thing. Hard to think of anything more.
Hmm.
I mean, we've still got the third panel to do in terms of the buttons and that sort of thing, but even the buttons rely
Well,
on
it
this.
all seems like it would all be run through this system anyway. Like everything you want to do, it's an absolute waste of time to try and prompt it manually for anything other than a sketch. If you want to make it a serious system, you need to run this like this synthetic grinder on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, even the state board comes out better because of this, and most importantly, it stays done once it is done.
Well, interesting enough, even a single bot comes out better.
Hmm.
And again, back to our kind of rule of thumb, you could recreate this with an infinite number of testers
Yeah.
and test writers.
Yeah. I just wonder why the big dogs aren't doing
Uh,
automated test generation.
oh, they will be. Uh, there's two things, possibly. They are doing it. Well, three things. They're not doing it. I think that's unlikely. I think the most likely is they're doing it and not published. Equally likely they have published, but it's not gained traction.
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe they found it
and that's it.
hard to present a user interface for it. because that would have been a nightmare if you tried to do a traditional UI for managing this type of thing, right?
Oh yeah, it would be actually.
But if you had a bot navigator, it's sort of like Netscape Navigator. It's like Chatscape Navigator, and that's the thing that makes it manageable.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Chatscape, quite like that actually.
Chatscape.
Yeah.
Well, let's not go the way that they went.
Well, that's essentially what we're doing. Instead of moving between websites, you're kind of moving between contacts, agent,
Chats between chats.
with a
Yeah,
long thread. So
yeah,
kind of makes sense.
yeah. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's funny. Oh well. Okay, I'll keep going with that. Hopefully, I had terrible working days actually. I only spent like a grand total of um about 3 hours in the past 2 days to get to this particular point. So
Well, that's
it's
bang
quite
for buck,
quick.
isn't it?
It's quite
Yeah.
quick, and I think I think I'll be good to go for another solid day. I think it'll look
Yeah.
pretty
Nice.
good. It's just so simple. Hmm.
Excellent. Excellent.
Okay.
That
All right. So
sounds.
you were going to show me some stuff, I think.
Well, how much time do you have?
As much as you need, buddy.
All right. Won't be that much because I said I've not tested this, but I just want to go through my thinking.
Oh, yeah, we got
So,
updates, buddy. We got updates. We got updates to workrooms.
have we?
Yeah, there's a switch screens button.
Where's that? I'm not seeing that. Change seat, raise hand, mute, computer room. Let's see a switch.
If you look at the monitor, it's like if you mouse over the monitor where you would normally click share or disconnect or resize, there's now a button that says switch screens.
Oh, so there is.
Yeah. I got something else that I wanted to show you as well.
Oh. Oh, yeah, yeah. So it's not switch our screens, it's switched onto my second monitor.
Yeah.
Oh.
And you can
That's very helpful.
configure multiple monitors in your virtual space. Now this is an interesting build release. I wanted to also point out to you that if you use pass-through now, you should notice that there is significant improvements in the distortion there.
I haven't noticed that. And also, they're doing something quite interesting in terms of field of view. So I can see my desk and the virtual monitor.
Right.
But yeah, it is.
It's much better, right? Like
Seems
it
a bit
doesn't
better.
have that weird sort of it looks like genuine view now, which is crazy. So they fixed that one, but then there's a cool release coming. 68 should roll out any day now. This thing, they're going to give you this layout utility app that's like a measuring stick that you can go around with. And then
It could be cool.
yeah. So that's fun.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was
That's more of a toy, but it'd be kind of cool toy. If you
yeah,
get,
well, measuring a room is pretty
pass-through
useful.
good, then you're starting to get into the AR realm, which would, if it does it well, would be
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, right. Now, unfortunately, I'm going to have to just. What I want to do is to check my thinking. Now, this is
Okay.
a bit of a monster prompt.
Oh dear.
Yeah, but it's because it's single prompt. I mean, it's still only 175 lines long.
Only.
So, yeah. Well, in terms of code, that's tiny, but in terms of prompt, that's quite big.
It's like yeah.
So what I've done is I've fed it in. Now, okay, so start at the start. Went through all these and did some tests about how well. The goal is to get a roadmap and something chattable that is input by NL notes, preferably drawn from and summarized from conversations like this. Now, the various tests that I did, some of which were pretty terrible, some of the which are better. Seems like PERT charts are it's like the ERD of the project. So if you have
Okay.
a PERT chart, everything else seems to flow through quite nicely, and you can
Can you do
annotate it.
Pert in Mermaid?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In fact, I've probably got one somewhere. I'll not bother, but yes, it does. Um, so it shows dependencies and show durations. It can show effort. It can show responsibilities in that one nugget of here's what we got to do. And then I've already tested successfully from a PERT. You can generate a Gantt. You can generate a context diagram. Critical path kind of comes as free because you can actually get that from the PERT itself. As is timeline. Work breakdown structures, not so much, kind of, but it's not as nice as that. Kanban boards, yes, and milestone, yes. So current is right. Okay, let's figure out if PERT is the ERD for projects.
Mm-hmm.
So the prompt essentially is you are to accept notes. And from those notes, every time you run the note, now a note is defined as this sort of thing, but the ingest, so this would be another bot, take a transcript or random set of notes, and I'll put it into this format and this timestamp so that I can show progress through time with that, but you can also then do some interesting thing saying, okay, so this is the content of it. Does this contradict anything else? Is it ambiguous? Do I actually know what it is? Interesting enough. I've already got this working, which is lovely. You'll like this. Generate a definitions library from just the notes. And so if we start talking about a similar context that already has a name, then highlight that and say, well, do you guys want to change this name or not?
Yeah, you kind of because it really helps for everything to have a metaphor that's already familiar, particularly if there's a large body of training data that the AI was trained on that the metaphor can be used with.
Exactly. And if people start talking about things, and we do this all the time, we talk about one thing, we can move from instantiations to agents to instances to images. And what I've directed it to do is not update the library so it's a bit sticky in the library, but just say, when you're talking about an image, are you really talking about an instantiation or are you talking about a file? Just to
Right.
get the coherence around that.
Yeah, right.
And then I answer questions. So once you've got the notes in, it generates a PERT, and the PERT, once the note input has been shown to be self-consistent, and when you're putting in notes, it'll go, oh, okay, this is a new concept. This is a new concept? Yeah. No, this isn't. Well, actually what I meant was that all your transcript picked up the wrong thing. Actually call it this. Then it picks up on tasks. So the task format is a fairly straightforward format. This sort of thing. Sure. And these are like just synthetic examples. But the is assigned to someone. It states we've got priority. Now the priority then comes into the where's the priority? Is the stack ranks. Answering questions. There it is, priority. So this is relative weighting. So if, for example, we've just been talking about, okay, so you're working on tests, I'm working on projects, but actually the work on tests will also help projects, then it would suggest a higher priority, or it would adjust the priorities based on a kind of stake in the ground saying, right, what we need is testing. It's like, okay, so rearrange the stack ranks for each individual based on that. And that seems to work pretty well. updates and allow updates that just
So it's starting to look like how we have individual files for customers. We actually need individual files for tasks, and then
yeah. Yeah.
these,
Now,
yeah,
again, interesting enough because we're just talking about this, is like this is again single prompt, so everything is in session. But putting those out and then ingesting those and making it self-coherent, you can also presumably run tests, right? You could run tests against a project. It's like
right, because the instantiated project with its state and its agents presents as one agent, and so you could run synthetic tests against it to make sure that a project of a
right,
you
right,
can right.
and those tests could say, what if this task was never possible? So that's not happening. What does that mean to the project? Like,
Oh yeah, yeah, you're talking about something different. You're talking about what if analysis
yeah,
on the
yeah,
project, and then I guess you could write yourself a bot that tried to generate nefarious conditions where you're like, what if this one and that one and then this one and that, what would
yeah,
happen then?
yeah. And also, interesting enough, and I've done this on the meeting bot.
Oh,
I've not
that's
done it in the
that's
project
super
bot, but
interesting.
it's
That's not testing to assure system completeness. That's testing um as a just a normal way of assessing
it's
risk by
yeah,
just
it's skepticism, isn't it? It's like it's what
yeah. So you're
yeah,
not really getting to oh man, that's mind-boggling, that one.
but it kind of flows and falls out quite neatly. Um, and
From the testing
you
thing,
can
yeah,
be
but it's not.
skeptical at
It's
any level. You can be skeptical if someone says
oh,
2 days, and it's like, what if that takes 4 weeks? Yeah,
right. So that's I guess this is sort of touching on and unifying a bunch of other aspects that we've been whispering about. Like for example, you know, one thing that you could do is allow neighbors to share their net connection, right? The issue
mm,
is that it's awkward for one neighbor to ask another neighbor for money if they didn't pay, and then it's also awkward if one neighbor
what did I
says,
return?
well, if one neighbor says,
Then
hey,
get
I
confused.
need certain uptime, or if one neighbor doesn't like the price, right? So there's a way that we can set these systems up so that you can make bots that ask all the awkward questions because the awkward questions
Yeah,
are very, very common. They're all well known.
that's exactly it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
And
Yeah,
and so the
awkward
bot just
questions, but
asks
yeah,
all the dick move questions and it's like, well, and then, each side has an agent that answers the dick move questions and if it doesn't know, it sort of
yeah,
asks the human in a much more polite way because it's like, well, it's not your neighbor, it's every other human on earth, sort of.
but 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 also with the dick moves, in my head, what we're just talking about for testing is actually equally transferable to the project world, and the tests are when we're talking about generate a whole bunch of prompts, really what we're saying is generate a whole bunch of dick moves with this temperature
Right.
and see what flows.
Well, yeah, so when that comes into project management land, a project is really a bunch of business rules that are going to be executed once, whereas a business is a bunch of business rules that are going to be repeated over and over, right?
Uh, yes, depending on how far down you chunk it, because there can
Right,
be cycles inside of projects and stuff
right.
like that.
And so
Yeah,
there's sort
yeah,
of conceptually no difference there except how many times you're going to run each one in the real world. But then when you start dealing with synthetic testing, you're running each one millions of times. There really is no difference between a project and a company because all the rules got executed in every plausible way.
right. Right, but then, yes, absolutely. And the interesting thing is, if you have a meeting and you decide something and you put it into this and it contradicts it and it fails a whole bunch of tests, saying you guys were going to deliver on the 1st of April. That last meeting you agreed to do this.
Right.
You ain't going to meet the 1st of April anymore.
Okay, so
With a
and then
90%
how
probability.
would I go about getting artistic license to be able to chat about something that's flipping all the alarm bells in the project bot, but oftentimes you need to talk about something unrealistic to then come back down to earth with something that is
I see.
realistic.
Oh, um,
Like, what have you killed
I
by
guess you could
being
just
too
add
practical
in
too
to
early?
the notes. You could we could add in a certainty, as in, hey, we're trying to build this test bot. How about we go to the moon to do that? It's probably not going to work.
No, but
Um,
in the discussion, you might get something valuable.
right. But if you have if we put a certainty into a note saying, like, this is a certainty of one, this is never going to work, but don't discount it.
Well,
Then
I guess you're talking about like you really want to break apart any suggestion into its atoms so that you can appraise the impact of each piece rather
mhm.
than looking at them at packaged value, because like sometimes wild ass ideas contain within them a nugget of truth, and you really want to be able to extract that
That's
out.
interesting. That's really brilliant. That's not in here at the moment, but I don't see why not, because that uh, all this isn't NL, so therefore it deals with fuzzy.
All right, and my
But
final question to you is
it's interesting.
how, given a project that was operated in this way, how could you publicize the project state in a way that you could invite innovation to improve the project theoretical performance? So, for example, you've got this project that's complicated, it's going to finish on Christmas Day 2025, and you're like, I'll pay $1,000 if someone can make it come in 4 days early because I don't want to work on Christmas Day.
Well, that's is there any difference between that and what it's saying about if you can improve the test scores by 10%, then
There
you can
is
go
no
and escrow
difference.
against that?
There
It's
is no
exactly the same thing,
difference.
isn't it?
You're just
Yeah.
simply
And you say, you know what, use stainless steel instead of aluminium on your big rocket. You go, what the hell?
right.
Why didn't we think of that?
Yeah, well, that's one of the world's dumbest questions. Why didn't we think of that? It's like, well, you just didn't. You just didn't.
But yeah, there's no difference, is there?
No,
Um,
that's
I
crazy.
mean,
That's crazy.
it
These
is
things seem
interesting, isn't it?
different. All my life I thought these were different things. And
Yeah,
now they're the same.
and this is an interesting thing as well. Um, Now, what do these translate across? These are when you're having a discussion about a project and someone asks or implies a question,
Mm,
uh, and then they go down another rabbit hole and they never come back to a question.
right.
That question may still be useful,
So
and
you're
so
trying to listen into all the chatter, and you're always trying to pull out individual questions, atomize them, and
yeah,
then run the variant generator on them to see which ones can be amplified to be particularly abrasive.
yeah,
Like,
and if possible, it's like, well, if this question was answered,
yeah,
what happens?
right. And then, like, so you could, a throwaway comment from a passerby could trigger an avalanche of concern because it would trip the bot to run these, find a
Yeah,
scenario that could really frustrate the certainty of the outcome of the system.
right, exactly. And I don't know if you remember, but years ago, I was talking about frequently unanswered questions.
Yeah,
Stuff that we were
also known
raising
as
and
the
never
fuck
answering because
yous.
it's like too hard. It's like, where do those go? So it's like, yeah. Um, but I think that is a really valuable thing also to have at least recorded. So saying you guys have been talking about how to do X for the last 4 weeks, and you haven't answered it. And then 2 months later, you keep talking about it, but you still haven't answered it.
So any stranger should be able to be like, okay, so what if the price of silver goes to, $50 a unit,
Yeah,
and then if the bot hasn't considered anything like that in its calculations, it would then start generating on that concept, playing out the scenarios, trying to answer it, and it might turn out to be a genuine problem, and you're like, "Ooh, we've never thought
yeah,
of that."
yeah. Because in this task, I've not got as far as assumptions yet. Those are probably going to be in there. But say if your assumptions are that our cost is going to be X,
Yeah.
there's another assumption saying the cost of getting this component is 40% to do with silver, 60% to do with labor. Um, and someone says, I think silver is going to go through the roof. It's like, shit, now that means that this is
Yeah, that's a
never going to be.
powerful tool though, because you can then, if you can model a company's supplier dependencies more intricately than it can, and you want to place a bet that the price of
Oh,
silver is going to change,
that's really nice
you can
because
short or buy
projects are so.
stocks, because you're like, there's a dependency there that doesn't
Mm,
appear popular, or doesn't appear to be in the common awareness, that silver
mhm.
affects the price of wheat stock.
Or you
And
could
so,
hedge as well by the same logic,
it,
right?
yeah, sorry.
You could hedge, saying we're assuming the price is going to be this,
Mm,
so we'll find another commodity which is diametrically opposed to it. So if this goes up, that goes down. So we're going to buy a chunk of that to hedge against the price of silver.
right, right. And so you'd start to actually have this understanding of these hidden relationships
Yeah,
between companies and products and things like that, because you started doing them for yourself. Then you could share those views between projects. So, like a bunch of startups in the same space could have a shared extended model of all the things that could affect them all, and they sort of take that as their
yeah,
reference thing.
yeah.
Then you could
Oh,
make good money from going in there. Like, these companies should hedge against, or sorry, escrow against new catastrophic unknowns, so that you can come along and just say a suggested terrible change, and if the bots cascade enough to figure out that, oh shit, then you should win the prize, like a penetration test or a bug bounty, because you
yeah,
found a bug in the thinking.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And the new interesting thing I hadn't thought about is so number one, it seems to work with projects, and I worked through that to get something demoable. But also the thinking behind projects. If you imagine a company to be effectively a project that has the start when you set up the company and an end when you exit, it's the same thing. Now, if you think about that as one project, and you're going to someone who runs a fund, they can run what ifs against a portfolio. It's like, what if AI never works? It's like, and then you're stuffed. Oh, okay, so maybe I need to get some more,
Right,
you know, petrol
right.
stations,
Or
or
like, what if there's like a drought or a famine in Sudan? Like, how does that affect this and that
right,
and this other thing, right?
right. And it'll always be imperfect, um, but it'll be a lot better than just being blind.
Yeah, because humans, it'd just,
Well, selection bias is the main problem with any kind of decision, right? Uh,
hmm,
so you've got the sunk cost fallacy. We've been working along this, and therefore we can't throw away all the code and restart. So we'll just like churn it on until we die. Um, or uh, the fallacy of thinking because we've we've already gone through this, then we just assume that's truth. But something else might have changed and makes that not truth. So there's a whole bunch of fallacy checkers kind of built into
Yeah,
to this
yeah,
idea.
yeah. And I can see it being like a job to make a fallacy checker. Like that's not just a single prompt, that's potentially a huge database of different
Oh, we've got one.
fallacial
Well,
things.
we've got a really gash one where all I did was pull in all the generally accepted list of fallacies
Yeah.
from Wikipedia,
Oh, I love that list.
and
Gosh, I love that list.
it ran pretty well.
Yeah.
I think I was doing it against text. It's like, here's a bunch of text. Tell me where there's fallacious thinking. And it's like, yeah, there it is. It's brilliant. It was quite fun. I was running it against
Yeah, like you could start to
some political
ingest
speeches.
whole books on a subject, like the Mythical Man Month, and then sort of run that against the project plan and all sorts of
Yeah,
fun things.
yeah. But
Okay.
the core of it seems to be this. Now, I've this was the start of the tests that I was doing. It seems to be doing pretty well. And I was just generating some
What
fake
did you
news
do here?
data.
What did you do? What did you do?
I stuck in the
The prompt.
platform. Here's the prompt. Where's my first? There's this prompt rather. Uh, I need to do task A, and user needs to do task B, but task A can't be completed before task B. And then it's like, okay, show me a Gantt, and it's like, here's a Gantt. I stuck it into Mermaid, and it's like, yeah, that's a Gantt. And then give me a context diagram. Provide me a context diagram. Very simple, of course, because there's only two tasks. And there's only two agents, A and B, but it was a context diagram. It's like, give me a part. Okay, there you go, part. So all these things are derivative, but you need to you need to have the first turtle before you start to go turtles all the way down. I think part is the best one at the moment, but I might be wrong. Still testing that. Give me the milestone charts. Milestone charts. And all this from, so if I were to put in contradictory data, okay, a live test here, let's see, what did I say? Okay, let's try and fuck with it and see if it does. Let's see. About to finish up, could you give me 10? Okay, let me do something first. Right, I need to do task A. User needs to do task user 2. Right, if I just reverse those, that should be straight. If I did task B, I have no idea whether this will work actually. It'd be interesting. And then to go and find out.
Right, you
What's in the
just.
fucking library.
Yeah, okay.
Right, give me 2 secs. Oh,
Hello.
back. Did
Hi.
that cut off my
Yeah.
screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Rather amusingly, well, rather typical, right? Actually, now is that was just Jude asking if I can get Hal set up with her task today on her laptop. I get that a lot now.
Wait, she's using hell.
Yeah.
She's using hell every day.
Yeah. She's got her
Why
master's
does
thesis.
why does she need
She-
help setting up? What is the setup task?
The setup task is she's not quite au fait with the intent piece.
Oh, so she needs help to sort of ask the question, right? How can we write some software that means that she doesn't need you?
That is, I've still got this on quite
I'd
low
say
down the
that's
priority
your
list is HAL 4, which is if you ask a simple question, answer the simple question, if you ask for help, give a run through of what you can do, and then be a bit nicer. Because at the moment, it just goes straight into the process, which is in HAL 3.
So you need a bit of a preamble.
Yeah, yeah. You just got to be a bit nicer. I was being a bit, HAL 3 is a bit autistic at the moment.
Oh, I hate Health
Um,
3. I'm sorry to
yeah,
be rude, but it's just, I'm like so much precision, and I'm like, didn't
yeah,
want that.
exactly, exactly. But it's just a prompting task. Anyway, how did this do? Quite curious. What did it say? Uh, Given that correction, the task speed can't be completely right, we need to adjust dependencies and speed. Start. Okay, dependencies. I'll update the diagrams. Oh, okay, so it just accepted it. All right, what I would expect is that would have said previously you said that A had to be
All
before
right, so what you should have done
B.
is written a test that described that
Yeah,
in the synth format, and then you're like, here's your expectations, here's your prompt examples, and
yeah,
all that, right?
yeah,
Because I need some. My areas of problem are I need to deal with chain of thought prompts in the test, so it's not just a one shot prompt. It's going to be like
yeah,
a series. Then I
yeah,
also need to deal with mocking function calls that were going to be made and intercepting them, because the test might be to determine if a function call was made and was it correct and did it have the right parameters and all that. So that's a different
yeah,
type of
yeah,
testing. And then yeah, the final one, we might want to mock that. So like return a fake call, and so I need to be able to specify that within the testing file as well. So
yeah,
those are my difficulties that I have.
yeah, yeah. Um,
Okay.
yeah, no, I was about to suggest that there's another one, but no, that's
No.
already covered.
All right. Well, I'll
Yeah.
just keep going on what I'm doing. You need to start thinking about how to write tests if possible, because I'll be ready to plug these in very soon.
Well,
I just need
how
some.
about if we go back to so I've taken this so far.
Mhm.
It's park this for a day and then generate a whole bunch of tests for Hammer V02
Mhm.
in the format, so that that would be in the form of a bot that takes the ERD and the test file and then produces the big long list of prompts. Would that be a
Oh,
useful?
the
Actually, that shouldn't take
generator.
that long. Yeah,
The
that shouldn't take that
generator.
long. Yeah.
I don't like the way you said that it was going to use the ERD. Like that doesn't sound.
Okay, well, I can try it without. It just seems helpful, but maybe if we, well, how about we try it first without? Um,
I get what you mean. Like you wanted.
let me come back
It
to
it
this.
just feels like
This
the generator should like the description of the test should cover whatever the generator needed. It shouldn't need the ERD, because when you try to make the test format general, what does the ERD mean, and how do you get it in there? Sometimes you bring it in, sometimes you don't. I mean, that's
well,
sort of what I was trying
my
to.
my thinking around that one. This is worth testing. Is to you got to be testing something. You're testing Hammer. The
Mm,
Hammer is the system prompt. And so, for completeness of the tests, you could ask someone to write their own test, but there'd be gaps and it'd be wrong, all that kind of human stuff.
right.
And you can say, right, well, here's the system. Give me a complete list of initial tests,
Yeah,
such that
right,
then
right,
they
right.
do.
So really, it's an intermediate bot that's being used specifically for ERD style sys prompts that automatically generates the basic information to generate more prompts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because otherwise, if someone's typing down those initial expectations, the prompt expectations,
yeah.
and then completely forgotten the fact that there's an accountant
Yeah, yeah,
But the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
ERD
So,
knows
so
which
I
test
guess,
them.
I guess what you're saying there is, if you make a tool to help you generate an ERD, then you should also make a tool to help you generate tests for the ERD as
Right.
well, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And then you
Awesome.
can rerun those as well. If you change the ERD, which is the end of the cycle, perhaps,
Yep.
for a big change, then you can rerun your tests. You diff the tests, and then you're off again.
Okay.
As opposed to saying, okay, so if I've got this complex ERD and I add in an accountant, what tests do I need? And my meat brain is just not going to get to all the nooks and crannies. Okay, so
Sweet.
is the thing that I do next, and what's the best? I can continue with the project bot, or I can write that generator of a long list of prompts based on the format that we went
It
through
would be
today.
most helpful to me if you can, for the bots that you care about, write down some basic test framework files so that I can get an idea on how you're thinking of using this framework, and
Mm-hmm.
also how it helps me understand more what you see in each bot, because you have
Okay.
a very developed idea on what different bots are supposed to do, like HAL 3, and you've probably got some bots that you haven't started working on. Please, can you make the test for them? Because then I see what you
Yeah.
want, and
Yeah.
that's gonna be the job now. Is writing the tests. Like, that's kind of
Okay.
the thing.
So how about I'll do it for Hammer
Yeah,
first off because
yeah.
that's a meaty enough thing. I do have a whole bunch of 3/4 written bots, like Button Bot is sitting there. Project is now sitting there, half done, 3/4 done, not quite right. Um, but they see Hammer is quite right, given its definition. So if I do it for Hammer, and then it should be with that process after we talk about it, I can rerun for these other things, hopefully trivially, depending on the bots that I write to do that. Okay, so, right. So I'm on test generation bot, and the process of moving one to the other, generating this list of tests. At that point, I'll stop because it's the kind of substrate thing to do the test runner.
No, like, uh,
Um,
I think you should be doing the test files, not the test bot, because the test files are not bots. They're specifications for the bots that you want. Because probably this is going to land this week, but then we're going to be caught short by not having enough test files to run and work on. And
okay.
I'm going to be caught
Well,
short if I didn't foresee something that you thought the system should do. And I'm like, oh, whoopsie.
all right. Okay. So, just to be sure, if you can grab the screen again, what we're talking about is the prompt expectations file, right? Just so I know exactly
Yeah,
what we're
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the one. So, there's an example here in this one under the test folder in HAL, and you just it sounds stupid, but that's it.
All right. Okay.
I mean,
All right.
it's like you couldn't
All right. I'll
you couldn't
generate
do it
you
any
a
simpler. I
bunch of
mean,
these. I'll generate you a bunch of
yeah,
these for tomorrow.
a bunch of these, man. That'd be super
Yeah.
helpful, and then you and I can talk about what is good and what isn't good, and then at the same time, you can think about how you'd make a bot that would help you write these
Yeah.
in a good way. But
I'll probably do
just
that in bootstrap
just be
fashion. I'll probably do
careful
it with.
that we're approaching a an apex where there is a minimum amount of input that a human has to give. Like
Yeah.
you might not be able to get a bot that could help you terribly much with this in terms of generating the content of it. You could get a bot that helped you ask you some leading questions and helped you with formatting and talked about different things and gave you help. But there's this weird point where, like, at some point, the human has to say what the human wants, and I think this is it. I think this is
I
the
think I think yeah, I've come across this quite a lot. Um, a bot is useful to think about, help you think, and then give you a seed.
mm.
But there's no substitution yet for
Yeah, they
actually
can
reading
solve
it
the
and
they can
editing it.
solve
And
the
so,
blank paper problem for you,
yeah,
but but
exactly.
but if we ask the right questions in the right way, we can really concentrate the effort of the human. And I think that in terms of bot writing, these tests are that
Yeah,
maximally concentrated thing.
cool. Right, I need to go now
All right,
before
buddy.
any more knocks at the door.
Thank you
Right,
very
okay.
much. I'll see
All
you
right.
tomorrow.
See you tomorrow with a bunch of tests.
Okay, bye.
See you, man.